So as we said, it is from evaluation to instruction using the Barraga Visual Efficiency Program, and we are so glad that you are with us today. You might be aware that this product is being featured. It is federal quota eligible, and we're going to dive in today to talk about the evaluation and the instructional components of this today. If you were not with us last week, a week ago, we went into the components of the guiding principles of using this program. And if you didn't have an opportunity to join us for that, we're going to drop in the chat box a link to the recording so that you can catch up. Great foundational information and rationale was provided last week for our learning. And yet today, we go into the actual evaluation, some step-by-step things will be talked about, and also how we handle instructional components for that. So we are so glad that you're going to be here with that for us today. So our presenting on behalf of Natalie Barraga today, who passed away in 2014, we do have Tristan Pierce, the APH product leader, who walked this program, this product from development to completion. And I think she showed a lot of perseverance. If you were with us last week, we learned that it actually took several years for this product to be developed and launched. And also we have Millie Smith. Millie is an APH product consultant, a vision consultant, and teacher of the visually impaired. As I had mentioned last week for me, Millie made an entrance into my professional career as an undergraduate student when I used her purple book called Teaching Students with Visual and Multiple Disabilities to guide my teaching when I first entered the field. And then fast forward 15 plus years, I got to meet her in person and at a 2-day workshop in which she shared what I thought was an amazing wealth of knowledge about working with students in visual impairment and their communication. So at that time, I do remember being in complete awe of Millie and her speaking and how fluid she was with telling, sharing the content, her knowledge, her wisdom, so much that I still have the 20 pages of notes that I took during that presentation. It made a big impact on me. So now, even though Natalie isn't with us today, her picture is here, as you can see. And her legacy really lives on in this product that we're featuring today. We will get the chance to think about how tools from this product will help teachers in the evaluation process, whether a functional vision assessment is being completed or a learning media assessment. And we shouldn't forget too, how this tool that we're talking about today has its place as a part of the expanded core curriculum assessment under sensory efficiency. So we are glad that you are here, and we are ready to hear what you have to share with us today, beginning with you, Millie.
Hi, everybody. Very happy to have a chance to talk to you again about Dr. Barraga and her program. The place I'd like to start is just a quick reference to what we covered last time to sort of bring you back in. So first of all, the program components. There are 4 books. The first 3 are contained in 1 volume, and that's a guidebook that contains all of the guiding principles and explanation and the research that led to them. And then the evaluation book. And finally, the design for instruction book. And in a separate volume, in a separate book, is the perceptual skills evaluation. And Tristan is going to be demonstrating the use of that piece, that component, when I finish talking about our case study student. So next slide. The reference I'd like to give you an overview. This is from the beginning of the evaluation book, and it's called, that's what BVEE is, Barraga Visual Efficiency Evaluation. It's called the Quick Start, and it's just an overview of the steps that make up this program. And so if you, I'm just going to read the steps, and then I'm going to show you the implementation of those steps with a case study student. So step number 1 is to list regularly occurring activities. And that's really kind of an overview of the daily schedule, a typical day. And you don't need to write in times or anything like that. You just list the activities in the order they occur. Then step number 2 is to rate the need for instruction. And that's based on your student's performance compared to the other students that he's that are part of his instructional program. And if there's a big discrepancy there, if he's behind his peers, then that's a reason to give that activity a high rating. But equally important, I think, is how much help is your student getting. So in any given activity, if his peers are performing fairly independently and he isn't, and somebody is helping him through the process, that's a huge red flag. And that's another reason for rating an activity as a priority. So step number 3 is to move then. Both of those activities are on the tool for those. It's called the activity inventory. Then you move to the instructional guide. It's the second tool that's part of this program. And in the first column of the instructional guide, you'll list the priority activities. And I'll show you all of this with our case study student in a minute. And then step number 4 is to actually observe those activities. And you may not observe them all at the same time. You may start off observing maybe a couple of them, and then as time goes by, you'll add more. Step number 5, this again is on the instructional guide, is to list the media or object affected by poor visual acuity in that activity. It's what everybody that collaborated to create this program agreed was immensely important, was to address visual efficiency in meaningful contexts. And secondly, that the more specific you are about what the visual challenge is for your learner in that specific context, the more likely you are to be able to do an intervention that makes a difference. And step number 6 is to identify the related skill from the visual from 3 sources. And these are just simple charts. And so you'll be identifying the related visual skill, this visual skill related to the media or object that's the challenge. And that skill may come from the visual skills chart. There's perceptual skills chart, or a third tool called developmental sequences. Developmental sequences will be more helpful the younger your student are, because it's the progression of things that happen in typical visual development in early childhood. And then finally, step number 7. I'm sorry.
Millie, it's down here. To determine and describe intervention.
Thank you. I've got it now, Tristan. Thank you. Determine and describe intervention. Yes, there's that just comes to you and comes from your expertise. You've identified a skill or a perceptual issue, a visual skill or a perceptual issue, and then you're going to come up with a description of how you want to address that challenge. And there are, in this program, 3 suggested types of descriptions. There's a description of accommodation, which is a change to the environment or materials that increases access, or there's actual instruction of a visual skill. And I'll show you again more about that with our case study student. And there are also strategies, and strategies means things you're going to do to increase the effectiveness of your teaching. All right, and step number 8 is lesson plans. And this is a hugely important piece of the program. You're going to provide instruction with lesson plans. The main reason the lesson plans are so important is because you'll have collaborating partners, the people who actually work on the intervention you've designed in the natural contexts. So next slide. And next slide.
Are you on the quick steps next?
No, I'm wanting to talk about Tran now.
Okay, there you go.
Okay.
We have about a 5-second delay in the share screen, okay?
Okay, thank you, Tristan. As a way of introducing our case study student, I'm going to use his functional vision assessment. And if you look at the beginning of it, you'll see that Tran is 4 years old. He is in a pre-K class in his elementary school. His eye condition is ocular albinism, but actually, these ophthalmological summaries are extremely important, but they really often are a demonstration, and in Tran's case, this was certainly true, of how important a functional is, because while everything that's on this summary is correct, it's also just a little bit misleading. He does have ocular albinism, but it's very mild, and it's really not the source of his visual efficiency challenges. If you look down at the ophthalmological summary, you see that he had retinopathy of prematurity, and at age 4, he's had 4 surgeries, and that's really the more significant factor in his visual performance. He has high myopia, but again, that's just a little bit misleading, because he has really significant problems with both distance and near vision. He has a peripheral field loss of about 20 degrees bilaterally, and that's peripheral. It's interesting, because on most functionals, I see a near acuity and not a distance acuity, and that was not the case with Tran. With the diagnosis of high myopia, and in the report just says that his distance acuity is 20/50 with correction is strong. I'm sorry. For some reason, I'm only getting part of the screen. Let me look at my book. Without his glasses, his distance vision is about 2200, partly because of his age and other factors. He really prefers looking at things at distance. And so his glasses are really important to him, and he does not like to take them off because he has real trouble without them at distance. So color contrast, color perception, sensitivity, and accommodation, fixation, all normal. Contrast sensitivity is low normal. So then next slide, Tristan. The
Keep going. It'll drag. It's got to drag. Keep talking.
mhm. So very, very important note. I want the slide on near vision and distance vision. Oh, Tristan, I'm so sorry. All I had to do was look over to the other side of the slide. Watching, doing these activity observation with Tristan, with Tran. I didn't do any observations with Tristan. With Tran, so interesting. He was really strong on certain aspects of both near and far, and had real significant problems with both aspects of near and far. As I mentioned before, he prefers looking at things at distance. He likes to watch what's going on in his classroom. And near vision tasks were a real issue. And in fact, a big concern for the teacher of visually impaired serving Tran was that he was beginning to develop some task avoidant behaviors with table tasks. And she suspected that the reason for that was that in order to see things up close, he has to get very, very close. His sort of go-to viewing distance for near tasks is about 3 inches, which is not good. And in order to do that, he has to look over the top of his correction for distance, his spectacles, which he does not want to take off. So he has it's uncomfortable for him. His head position is way down, so he can look down at something on his desk and over the top of his glasses at the same time. Distance function, he has pretty significant problems in mid-range. Often what he'll do is, in order to see detail in something, he will move away from it a little bit, and which means that he can't see very much specific detail in anything he sees at distance. So the only other thing I'll mention is on his near vision performance. His performance with pictures was very interesting. He did really, really well with simple one object pictures. He could identify a picture of a single object on a 2x2 card at distance, and that's pretty amazing, I thought. But if the picture contained partially obscured objects or multiple objects or scenes, if it had very much complexity, he was absolutely lost. Okay, next slide. So the first thing to do with Tran was to look at his activity inventory, and what you see there is a sample of that. The list in the first column are the activities that his TDI identified as his priority activities. And you will see that, oh, and the method she used for determining what his priority activities were and rating, I'm sorry, the method she used, first of all, for getting the overview of what his typical activities in a day were, was, and then for rating those activities in terms of need for intervention, was an interview. And she did interview Tran's mom to just get an idea of how his morning went, because it, you know, especially with young children, how their morning goes is a good prognosis for how their day is going to go. And then she moved into the school environment, and she interviewed the pre-K teacher for that. So what you see there are Tran's typical activities for the day, starting with breakfast at home and dressing at home, and then his arrival routine after he gets off the bus at school, centers, journal time, morning circle, etc. You can look down the list. And you see that there are 3 possible ratings. There's low need, which means that he's performing pretty much the same way his peers are performing. There's medium need, which means that there are some things that could be addressed that would help. And there's high need, and that means that his performance in that activity is pretty far below expectation. And you will see that he had 3 medium need activities, and let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 high need priority activities. Now, I do want to just let you know, teachers of the visually impaired, that that's a lot in the work with TDIs that I've done since then. More typically, there are about 4 high and medium need activities. So let's take a look at Tran's intervention guide. And so his over on the in the first column of the intervention guide, you see listed his priority activities, and those are arrival time and journal time, centers, morning circle, playground, arts and crafts. The media identified it to be looked at in terms of an intervention for arrival time. He has difficulty with his name tag on his cubby and the hook on the coat rack. And he had to have one-to-one help from the teacher assistant or the teacher to do both of those things. Journal time, he had trouble with his notebook. He place finding in just pretty much everything. Basically, he just didn't want to look at it for reasons I talked about earlier. In centers, he had trouble with picture books and puzzles. And it was frustrating for him because he wanted to do both because his peers were doing them, and he just lost. In morning circle, he had trouble with the weather pictures and somewhat with the calendar as well, but mainly with the weather pictures. In playground, he really had extreme difficulties doing anything out there in bright sunlight. As a matter of fact, he usually found a shady spot and sat. Arts and crafts, he cutting out things was a problem. So related visual skills is the next column on the intervention guide. And you will see there that for his arrival time, and we'll just talk, because I need to hurry up a little bit, about the first 3 activities. There are visual skills identified for, there are 4 visual skills identified in those 3 activities and 1 perceptual skill. And again, that comes from the charts that we're gonna look at next. So let's look at the charts. The visual skills chart is divided into 2 parts. There's visual examining behaviors, and that's fixating, tracking, locating, shifting gaze, scanning, and you identify whether those are visual efficiency challenge in regard to 3-dimensional objects, or 2-dimensional pictures and symbols, or possibly even both. And then it lists the functions related to those skills: locating, detecting line of travel, identifying, comparing. I won't go into quite so much detail on the next part, but that gives you an idea of the information contained in the chart. The second part of it is visually guided movements of the body, and that's head and body alignment, body to object alignment, and object to object alignment. The next chart is the perceptual skills chart. And okay, there we go. And the most important thing to remember about the perceptual skills chart, in my mind, is that it's divided into 3 contexts. You look at perceptual skills related to objects, related to pictures, and then finally related to graphics, designs, letters, numbers. And I am so pleased, and the reason I want to hurry up a little bit and let Tristan show you the perceptual skills evaluation book is that it's been very frustrating for me in my career as a TBI that there were really very limited ways to assess picture and object perception. You know, we had lots of tools and ways of looking at assessing a learner's, a student's ability to perceive letters and numbers and even some other kinds of graphics, but mainly letters and numbers. Not a whole lot in terms of objects and pictures. And that's a huge, it's always been a huge problem, but it's even more of a problem now when learning media has changed so much for our students, and especially those who are younger, like for Tran and pre-K, a huge amount of the material that his teacher uses for instruction is pictures. And his emerging literacy skills are highly related to his ability to perceive and understand the content of pictures. And for older students now, there's so much emphasis on video. And so anyway, the thing that I'm really, really pleased about is the tools available through this program to you for assessing the learner's perceptual skills with objects and pictures. And then the final chart, and again, I mentioned this one's really more significant, probably for the younger student. This comes from the work of Kay Farrell. And so, for instance, from infancy to early childhood, typical children develop awareness and then attention and then understanding. They're attracted to lights, then people, and finally objects, and so forth. So the next thing on Tran's instructional guide after identification of his skills is the description of the intervention itself. So I'll just go through one example there. On arrival time, he has trouble with his name tag on his cubby. And the visual skill identified for that is high contrast, low contrast. His ophthalmological indicated they had low contrast sensitivity. And that was evident in performance as well. Tristan, if we can go back to the instructional guide, I think this might be on the next slide, actually. No, okay, but that just stay there. That's okay. The intervention described in the instructional guide for helping him have better visual efficiency with his cubbyhole is to enhance the contrast for his name tag. And the strategy for that is for identification is to teach him the skill of identifying his name written in cursive and manuscript as well. You know, so this sounds like a small thing, but it's not a small thing. The pre-K teacher likes to change the names on the cubby holes and use name stickers that have a seasonal or a holiday related theme. So around Thanksgiving, the name stickers on the cubbies are on pumpkins, and at Christmas time, they're on Christmas trees or wreaths or something like that. And that is not a problem for students who don't have a visual impairment, but it's a big problem for Tran because they're then unfamiliar and often too complex. So he needed, and that doesn't mean that he can't have a name tag like his peers. He can. He likes the pumpkin on his cubby hole, but he has a name tag that stays the same and has accommodations along with it. So he has two name tags. Okay, so the next part of the program are the lesson plans. And there are two kinds of lesson plans. The first one you see there is collaborative lesson plans. And that means that the TBI is not teaching this lesson plan. The pre-K teacher is teaching it. She's the one who monitors activities in centers, puzzles as part of his center time. And so that's made clear on the lesson plan. It tells you that the instructor is the pre-K classroom teacher. It identifies the visual efficiency goal, and which is to scan from left to right. And it compares it to his academic performance. It talks about the embedded visual skill, short-term objective. The short-term objective is to be able to shift gaze to the next item in an array without skipping. And I'm sorry, that's not true. The embedded short-term skill is given a two-part puzzle to hold one hand steady and then with the other hand rotate until they complete a picture. So just a heads up, TBIs, This lesson plan contains more pieces than you may find are helpful to you or your collaborating partner. Feel free to shorten and emphasize what you think is most helpful to have happen in centers with puzzles the way you need for it to happen. I'm just going to show you one other lesson plan, and then I'm going to turn it over to Tristan. So let me show you an example from the second category. Now, that's a collaborative lesson plan. There are also lesson plans that are direct teach lesson plans, and these are for skills, TVIs, and comms where you're going to provide some pull-out, one-on-one initial instruction on that skill. And the important thing to remember in regard to this is if you just look at the example there for use top to bottom, left to right scanning patterns to examine projected materials visually. The TBI, often for something like that, it might even be a comm who's teaching a telescope. So in Tran's case, it wasn't a telescope, but was the use of a pen light to help him move from left to right. He did some practice sessions with his TVI to get used to that strategy and to build his confidence in being able to use it successfully. The TVI recognizing that if it didn't feel easy and useful to Tran, it was never going to happen. And then if you look at that lesson plan, then you see transition strategy, and you see that it says play I Spy in the classroom, find named pictures in projected arrays. Tran liked to do that with cartoon strips. And that sort of paves the way to being able to do things like use videos. And his teacher used a lot of videos, things to sort of develop community concepts. And Tran was lost. He needed to develop some skills that would lead up to being able to benefit from that particular type of media. So with that, Tristan, I'm just going to talk very briefly about the accommodations, and then it's yours. TBIs, some of you have heard me talk about this before. The traditional practice for TBIs is to list things like high contrast and reduced clutter and whatever it might be, large print, even Braille, to list those things as recommendations in the functional vision assessment. And that's traditional, but it's not real effective. And TBIs, I don't know if you share my concern, but too often those recommendations get lost and are never implemented in daily instruction. The way to ensure that important visual challenges are addressed in daily instruction is to make sure that they show up on the accommodations, modifications, and support page in the IEP. And what you see in this example is just a sample of one of those IEP pages in the school district where Tran was served. And it lists the accommodations and modifications, and some of those for Tran are use 18 point, what kind of print he does best with, contrasting backgrounds, you can see the details there. And then down at the bottom, it says what his supports are. So TBIs and comms, get your stuff in the IEP. All right, Miss Tristan.
Okay, I hope everyone can hear me okay. If not, type it in the chat and we'll let Amy do her magic there. Okay, I showed this photo last week and I need to show it again today because before you start using the item kits, I would like you to look at the list I have down here on the left. First, read the PSE overview in the book. And that's very important. It will give you the steps you need to follow. Second, you need to arrange the bags, all of these items that come in off of APH's production floor, okay? They are packaged in a way that makes it efficient on the production floor to help try to keep costs down. So as you will see, first off, all of the hats I have here, the hats all come in one bag together because those are made for us at a factory in Connecticut. So on our production floor, they can just grab one bag and throw it into the kit to save time. So there is a note on that bag of hats that says, upon receiving this kit, remove the 3-color hat and place it in the 3-color bag so that it's organized better for you when you go to use it. Likewise, you'll see that there are, in the picture here, we have a small green boat, a medium green boat, and a large green boat. We also have large, medium, and small 3-color spoons, red spoons. We have small, medium, large yellow books, small, medium, and large 3-color books. Make sure those things are organized in a bag that makes sense to you and how you're going to use it so that it saves time and you don't need to coordinate things while you're sitting there waiting for your student, okay? I also want you to take a look at the boat hulls and decks. So down here, the green ones down here, I don't know if my cursor shows up on this, doesn't seem to show up on here.
It doesn't show up when you say down here, it doesn't make much sense.
Okay. So the green boats you see that, and the red, yellow, green, blue at the bottom, I have the hulls attached to the decks. But up on the upper right there, the blue boats, I have all the hulls stacked together and all the decks stacked together. And that's the way they'll probably come to you in your bag. Now, some of these, they fit really, really well. I'll show you a demonstration later on how well you can shape them, and they seem to hold together very well. But periodically, maybe it's the temperature change, the barometric in the air changes. If you are having trouble with your decks and your hulls, maybe they're falling apart on you, I will show you that I just put some 2-sided tape between a hull and a deck, and it holds together very, very well. You could try gluing if you want. I try to avoid gluing if I can, just because it gets messy sometimes and then you have to wait for it to dry. But that's why I say you need to check all these items out before you ever take it out to a student, okay? Also, adhering the internal detail stickers. The stack of blue boats up there in the upper right corner, they will need their blue stickers attached to them onto the sails. So I showed you last week, you have smiley face stickers, crescent moons, stars, and peace signs. So those need to also be adhered to your sailboats before you ever go out to see a student. And also the books need to be folded. In the photograph here, you'll see I have some of the books folded, but they are going to come to you flat. And so you just need to fold them right along the staple on the back and press them down good so that your books are all ready for you to use, okay? So those are things you need to do before you ever go see your student. Now, before using the items with your student, Millie has recommended that you allow some playtime so that they become familiar with the items. And I'll even show you some stuff on the website where you could print out stuff and let them play with the boats and the hats and stuff like that too, just so they become familiar with it in playtime before you actually do your assessment. Okay, so next I'm going to switch over to the document camera and show you some demonstrations. We'll probably skip through the color and shape. They're pretty similar. I mean, most people I think know that you're going to match, you know, red to red, and you're going to match green to green, and you're going to match, you know, boat to boat, and you're going to match book to book. So when it gets a little more involved, because the entire program always starts off with the simplest way, and then you're gradually going to advance to more complex ways, as it shows here on our bulleted list, with identification, visual closure, figure ground, visual memory, constancy, and part whole. So I'm going to stop sharing. Well, actually, I think I'll just do this. I will switch over. Nope. Where's my, let me go back to you.
So you are still sharing your screen so that you know, Tristan.
Okay, thank you, Amy. I think it moved up here to the top, maybe.
It does move around.
It moved up to the top on me. That's why I couldn't find it. There it is. I was looking on the bottom. And where did it go? Come back up. Come back up. Come on. Okay, you are sharing screen.
Do you want us to stop sharing your PowerPoint? Do you want to stop sharing your PowerPoint, Tristan?
I guess, yeah. So
Yes.
Just hit escape. No. Go back to that then.
I can fix it.
Stop share.
Okay.
I stopped it for you.
Okay.
There you go.
Going to IPvo camera. Yay. Okay. Now we're back to our camera. Yay.
Yes, we are. Looks great.
Okay, so the first thing I do want to show you is I need to hit my focus button, don't I? Okay, there we go. So this is a small green boat, and I just wanted to show you that, yes, it's pretty tight. I did put tape on this one, the tape. I do have some others here. Here's a medium red. It does not have tape on it. It seems to be holding pretty well, but like I said, I can't promise you it will always hold really well. So just check out all your boats before you take it to a student.
Tristan, one moment. Can you please check which microphone has turned on?
Oh, yes, I will. Where am I down at the bottom down here now?
Gotten shaky.
Mute. Same as system. I'm going to switch over to the IPvo camera. Is that any better?
No, it's actually worse.
It's worse. Okay.
Yes.
How is that?
That sounded good.
Okay, well, I'll try to remember to keep my head turned towards the computer and my hands toward the camera.
Okay.
So first of all, I want to start off showing you this, the program book again. And in the program book, it will give you demonstrations of all the stuff. It just like we list one for match color. These are actual objects. So these are photographs of objects of boats. Match shape. These are objects. So we do have samples within the book just to show you, but these are not to be used for the evaluation. It's just to show you how to lay them out. Okay. And the book will also give you exact directions on what to say when you're showing them to the students. So you can make a photocopy of this if you like and take it with you. So I will lay that down and we will then do our first one. So I'm going to show you the PSE book again quickly, lay it down here. And I believe last week I showed you, but for anyone who was not here last week, this is when you're doing objects, you can score it here. It has your object. This is skill number 3, which is match size. Trial 1. Over here, same thing, object, size trial 2. Okay, just to show you how that goes. Okay. So this is our presentation board. I'm going to show it up kind of the corners here. This is our presentation board. Okay. And I guess if you have a nice, smooth, clean white tablecloth, you could do that as well, but not everybody's going to have that. So we do provide 2 presentation boards. How's my sound right now, Leanne?
Good so
You
far.
sound good.
Okay, good. Okay, so we're going to start off with match size. So we are going to lay down a medium book. And this is a pretty complex one. It's a 3-color. I think I'll go here. Okay. Just kind of shows the sides a little better. So like you could just say in your book, and it tells you the action for the teacher to do is to point to the sample object. And you would say, look at this object. Pass your hand over the array and say, look at these 3 objects. And then say, which one is the same as the first object, and point to the first object again. And then if the student gets it correct, you would circle the plus on the ledger I showed you earlier, or you would circle a minus if they did not get it correctly. Okay, and that ledger is available on the Barraga website as well. Now I'm going to show you what I have done here. Well, actually, I can't show you because I'm on the, well, maybe I can do it under the camera. If any of you are familiar with APH's expandable calendar boxes, that's how I'm keeping myself organized to do that. So see, I connected them, and for each trial that I'm showing you, I just grab them and put them out, okay? It just makes things a lot easier for me. So I do just want to quickly show you this sailboat with the internal detail stickers on it, okay? Because the next one I'm going to show is internal detail, but I want to show you that we've got different types of internal detail. These little stickers you put on the boats, they do match a lot of the little object books you'll get. But we also have a little more complex one of an object book. Well, you'll see we're not using those stickers, but still again, you have the star is the identifying detail on these books, and you have to match it between a crescent moon, peace sign, and another star. So again, you would repeat, see this object? Look at these 3 objects. Which one of these matches this one? Again, so quick, easy. So the next thing we're going to do is part whole. So with these, whoops, see, I have a boat that came open. Okay, there we go. So you could do this a variety of ways. You could do it this way. Partially, you could do it this way.
Can you describe what you're doing with the cloth?
Oh yeah, sorry about that. Sorry. Okay, so I folded I have a micro, the kit comes with a microfiber cloth, okay? Very white, very smooth. I folded it in half, and I'm laying it vertically across the, so I'm cutting the sailboat in half vertically. So you only see half of the sailboat, okay? Or I could put it horizontally, and I'm cutting off, let's say approximately half of the sail. So you only have the lower part of your boat. And then you could do it again where you just cut off the deck and the hull, and you're kind of just showing the sail, okay? Either which one. And again, see this object? Look at these 3 objects. Which one of these 3 objects matches this object, okay? Okay.
And what I like with that too, Tristan, while you're changing things out, is that this really helps instructors, teachers hone in on those visual perception skills, the part to whole, maybe even figure ground, that this helps us to collect data on those skills.
So speaking of figure ground, now I've grabbed the second mat. I already had the figure ground mat on it. It's just a mat that I've laid on top here, okay? And we have our yellow hat as our sample object. And then in our array, we have the yellow boat, the yellow spoon, and the yellow hat. And it goes well because our patterned background is a pale purple background with flowers that have a yellow center and white petals. So the yellow kind of blends in sometimes with those yellow centers of the flowers. But you would just follow the same thing again, you know, see this object, look at these three objects, which of these looks like, you know, your first one there. Very quick, very easy to do.
And what I love too, if I can just interject specifically about this, that this also gives us a way, teachers, to collect information on complexity, that visual complexity. If we're working with students that may, you know, have CVI characteristics, this might be one way to also collect information, to know about that figure ground and that complexity.
Okay. Now, if you'll notice, I've taken my divider line away. I've just got my 4 objects with no divider line. Here we are looking at visual memory. So we want to figure out which is missing. So first off, on this one, you might have a little bit of difference in your direction here. So you're going to pass your hand over the 4 objects and say, look at these 4 objects. Name each object. And then, you know, let the student name each of the objects. Then with your second board, you're going to place it over top. You're going to remove one of those objects, remove it, pass your hand back over the 3 remaining objects and say which object is missing. Okay. And now then, we're going to go to identifying an embedded object. Okay. So here we've used a yellow hat and we've embedded the spoon into the turned up edge of the hat. So you only see a portion of that spoon. And in our array, we have the red boat, the red book, and the red spoon. So again, the idea is that you will have to say, you know, point to the sample object, look at this object, pass your hand over the array, look at these 3, then point to the sample object at the end of the question when you say which object is part of the first object. Okay, so which object is part of the first object? So that's.
Here's a question for you, Tristan, if I may. Looking at just specifically what you have right there, what would be something that teachers could do to help with the impulse, if you will, of students wanting to reach out and touch it and have it in their hand? And the reason I was thinking of that is when we're thinking about the complexity for students and, you know, if they're not sure what they're looking at, and because it's not a picture, it's actually an object, and maybe too, Millie, you might be able to speak upon this. Is there something that we can be doing and thinking about to help that impulsivity of a student wanting to just automatically go and reach out and touch it in order to get that tactile information?
Well, I believe that's one of the reasons, and Millie can jump in on this, but I believe that's one of the reasons she had said at the beginning to let the children actually play with the objects at first, get to know, become familiar with them. So then they'll know about them. They'll know their shapes, they'll know their texture. And that way they can just point to the correct answer.
That's right. I'm so glad that you circled back about that. I wanted just to also make sure, Millie, was there anything that you wanted to add upon that? You are muted right now, Millie.
Millie, mute it.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, ma'am.
I think it's really important not to get into a power struggle kind of thing. And that's going to depend a little bit on the language comprehension level and the age of your student. If they understand verbal instructions like point first, great, do that. And they have the impulse control, to follow through with that. For a younger student like Tran, for instance, 4 years old, he uses a huge amount of tactile confirmation. So don't make it a power struggle, as do most young children, even those without visual impairments. So in terms of him reaching out to touch the object that he selects, it's okay if he doesn't stop with a point. If he reaches out and picks one up, you still know that's his choice.
Okay, now we're going to switch over from 3D to 2D. So this is when you'll start using this book again. And I just want to remind you again, I think I covered this last week, but just in case someone wasn't here, I'm going to try to show both sides of this book at the same time without knocking my camera over. So our first activity is the P for picture, skill 1, which is going to be match shape. And then, oh no, this is not match shape. This is match object to picture of object to same picture. Okay, so 1, and then this is our first trial. Now, if the student is sitting here facing just like I'm doing, and you're on the opposite side of the table, so you're going to be seeing the flip side of this book right here, you will have P.1.1 skill match object to picture. So even it's two separate pieces of paper in the book, you were doing the same thing. Okay, so this way, when the student gets it either correct or incorrect, you can then mark it simultaneously right there. Okay, so I'm going to flip that over for now. So here we are going to, we even wrote on here red spoon. So that tells you to then just drop the red object spoon right on top there. And again, you would, point to this object and then say, look at these 3 pictures. Which of these pictures matches the object? Okay. And you don't even have to mess with that divider when it's in the book. It's kind of nice there. Okay. And of course, another one, I'll just show you to place the blue boat there. Okay. So I'm just going to kind of flip through all of these, just show you 1, maybe 2, if it's something maybe important to show. Here we have our books. This is P.2.2, second trial, okay? So you're going to be matching the green book to a green book in the array. We have green book, yellow book, green book, blue book. So there we are matching color. Here we are now matching shape. Yellow hat is our sample object. Our array is yellow boat, yellow hat, yellow book. Flip through these quickly as I can. We have included outline drawings of each object as well. So here, P.4.5, this is our 5th trial in determining size. So here we have a large sailboat, a medium sailboat, a large sailboat, and a small sailboat. Okay, here I talked to you. You have a little more when it's a printed picture, a little more variety in your internal detail. So here we have a red hat with stars, and you then have to select from a red hat with smiley faces, a red hat with stars, and a red hat with peace symbols.
When you're showing this, Tristan, what is also coming to my mind, because I'm generalizing how educators might be using this. And so in my mind, I'm generalizing again to the broad array of students. And I'm thinking about that complexity again, and how much of this information, by using this tool, the information we can gather about complexity of, you know, going from the 3D to the 2D, it does make me think about content that we can get out there of how much of pictures students can understand. And especially when you went from the color of the picture to the previous one was just the outline. And so I think that there is so much, I'm just seeing how relevant this is when we want to understand the finer details as well as of that complexity issue that students might have.
Yes. Okay. We may have to, let me know, Amy, if you want me to just cut short on showing all of these samples, if you want me to get to the website, because I'm looking at the time right now. So
Honestly, I'm so glad that you asked that. I think going onto the website is perfect. We are about 17 minutes out, and I think that you have shown the variety of options that is available in using this tool and what things look like. I know that there are several questions that are mounting. Some people asking too about forms and printability and things of that sort. And I believe that perhaps some of that can also be addressed by visiting the website.
Okay. I flipped through the others while you were talking, and I just do want to cover the fact that it accumulates in the end with a lot of complexity, okay, embedded, an object embedded. So eventually the child will have to identify our 4 objects: the spoon, the book, the boat, and the hat within a family picnic scene, okay? And just to let you know too, is that we do move on. We do move on past our 4 objects into our symbols, okay? This does get into our literacy. They have to identify in Roman type, in cursive type. I'm going to flip through here. Again, everything we did before with the complexity of the patterned background. We will have letters in, italics in letters. And I really need to show, we get to numbers, a mixture of letters and numbers. We have to get embedded again with words. So we have an O, an A, and a D, and you have to identify which one of those is embedded in the letter hat, or the word hat. And then we also have sentences as well that they need to match. I'm getting into that reading part. So I just needed to show that just a little bit there. And we will try to switch over now to the website. We have to get past me sharing everything again. We're going to switch from the IPvo back to the computer. Okay, and then I need to share screen. And I need to get to the Barraga website here. Okay, now I am on the Barraga website. And I need to move these things over because it messes me up a little. Okay, so like I showed you last week, if you click on any of your icons of the books, if you go to the program book, you will get the HTML version and the Braille version. Likewise, same thing with the PSE. And We also, I talked about last time, we have line drawings that you can access as activities, expansion activities. They really do not play a part of the evaluation. They're just there, like take-home activities, things to do with peers. We have two videos again. One is Natalie Barraga talking herself, and one is Millie interviewing Dr. Barraga. So to get over here quickly, you can, I have already logged on. So as you see, I have logged on. For you to use this website, you will need to register, log on, create a password, of course, okay? And then you can always come down here and create a new student. I have a student here that I have created. For privacy reasons, APH cannot allow you to put a student's name in the website, so you must assign a numerical code for your student. For me, I have used 2016. I did that because Tristan, the letter T, is the 20th letter of the alphabet, and Pierce, P, is the 16th letter of the alphabet. So that's how my code is 2016. You can come up with another way of coding your students if you would like. So as you see here, these are the forms that Millie went over: the activity inventory, the intervention guide, the accommodations, modification supports, collaborative visual skill lesson plan, direct visual skill lesson plan, the team training plan for visual efficiency and instruction, and then the perceptual skills performance, which is what I was just demonstrating there. So if it's got blue under it right now, that means that I have already added something to it. So quickly, I will show you just a quick sample here. If you see in the book, this kind of mimics what's in the book. So I have already done object, scale, match color, and I have done 5 trials, okay? And my imaginary student that I used here got the one color correctly every single time, but did miss on the 3 color. And I think Millie mentioned something like that with Tran happened. So the computer system here, or the program here, does all the math for me. So I know that with 1 color, the student got 100% correct, but 0 correct with 3 color. Now, if you want, you can always click in and edit, redo some more things. You could just turn this into a PDF. Someone, I believe, last week asked if they could print this out. Yes, you save it as a PDF and you can print it out, okay? Just to show you what you would do right now, I'm in objects, but if you want it, you could click to pictures, you could click to graphic symbols, and each one will come up. This is 01 object, our first trial. If I click next, it's going to take me to object 0.2.1, which is matching shape. Okay, so that's just how you would advance from one to the other. And go back to previous here. Okay, and you can always click back to your student number to get back to the master page if you would like. And I believe I discussed last week already that you could share students, like if you have an IEP team or something, you can share your student, or you can transfer your student if your student is switching schools or their family's moving or whatever. And once you transfer, you can then delete the student from yours. So I'll first show the activity inventory. You know, to start one, you would just hit the add button, okay, if you have a new one to do, but we're going to start here. So I just put in a journal time. You could add another one down here if you wanted to, okay? So if I wanted to, I would have to edit it because it's already existed, okay? And let's try arrival time. Oh, it looks like I already put one in there at one time. Okay, we're going to do arrival time. So let's say it's low need at arrival time. Okay. And I would save it. And then again, you could remove, if you select any of these things you select, you could remove them. Okay, we don't want to do that right now. If you want to view it, it comes up just like how you saw it in the book. This is the way they appear in the book, okay? Go back. If you want to add another activity, you would just add another activity, okay? I'm gonna go back to our student here. And to show you an intervention guide here. Let's see.
Here's a timely question, Tristan, while you are loading that up to share. About how many students do you think can be added? Also, how long does the data remain on the site? Is it automatically housed indefinitely?
As far as I know, yes, it is there indefinitely until you choose to delete it. Okay. And there is no limit as to how many students. If your student, like say a student has matriculated out and you're no longer serving that student, then I would say go in and delete the student. Yeah. But APH doesn't have a timeline on this, that we're going to be bumping your students off at the end of the school year or anything like that, if that's what the question is. I'm not quite sure. But if you do want to retain records of a student, then if you would like to save them as a PDF, then you will have that record yourself. Okay. So here again, we are looking at a sample intervention guide. I think I just maybe typed this in out of the book because it looks like Tran's name tag on cubby and hook on coat rack. And again, you could edit, save it as a PDF. You could delete it if you wanted to. Okay. If I want to edit, add something to it, I will hit edit. And then this shows you how it looked when I did it. Okay. So you select arrival time, hook on coat. This is a drop-down box. This was off one of the charts that Millie showed you. Okay, you would just select the one that you need. Okay. Same thing up here with perceptual, your identification, visual closure, figure ground, you choose that. Same thing over here. We have our accommodations, our skills, and our strategies. And these are not drop-down because, of course, they're going to be, particular specific for each student and for each priority activity. But you just add those in as you want. And then once you save it, it then looks more like what you see. Whoops, it didn't do it. Oh, view, sorry, view it, then the way it looks in the book. Okay.
So in looking at the last few minutes that we have, is this an opportunity that maybe we can entertain a few questions?
I'm sorry, I hear something in the background. I heard some unusual noise and I couldn't hear you, Amy.
Is this a time that in our last few minutes that we can entertain a few questions?
Yes, definitely. And just to let you know, Amy, the sound comes back when you talk. There's a background noise on you right now. Okay.
Leanne, if this continues, I'll have you jump in and ask the questions. I've noticed that the fan on my computer has for some reason come on. So Leanne, I have in the wiki some things highlighted that I would have spoken about.
Okay. So the first is those forms are on the website, correct? Is that correct?
Yes, these are on the website. And this last one down here, the perceptual skills performance right here, these here, they are here on the website, but we are making some additional options. Like I showed on the perceptual skills, on the flip page of each one, you have that printed where you just circle the plus or the minus there. That is one option. And we are actually creating a third option. I hope this website to be a website that can provide resources for this product, and new things can be added to it as people use it and make suggestions to APH. So currently right now, I am making these performance records as simple Word docs. And we have a programmer working on that right now, and we will add those to the opening page so they can click those if they want, and they can actually just print out Word docs of these forms as well and use them if they would like.
I'm going to let people know that the current availability right now on the website is there are 103 kits. The kits come with the evaluation books and all of the items that Tristan was displaying. At the moment, the only separate thing that you can purchase are the books.
Yes, that is correct.
Is there information in the testing to determine when to stop presenting items? You get a certain amount of X's to say stop evaluating.
Is that with each, the overall, or is that within each skill?
I think they're asking about each skill, just so that they know when to stop.
Okay, I will let Millie talk on this, but I do know that within objects and within pictures, none of them have more than 6 trials, I believe, on each one. So it's not a whole lot on any of them. When we field tested, there were many, many, many more, and the teachers just found it to be too much to do. So we really pared that down. But I will let Millie address that. I do believe that just the longest one would be 6, I believe. Yeah. Millie, are you familiar?
So I would say from my experience, what I do in an assessment is I stop when I feel like I'm confident about the picture I have of the student's performance related to a skill. So with something like um, embedded objects, for instance, um, if I feel like using the materials contained in the kit hasn't really given me an accurate picture of what the student's typical performance on that skill would be, I I might I might use objects that are um, more part of the learner's everyday experience and aren't necessarily part of the kit, like socks or uh, cereal bowls and spoons or whatever it might be. So just um, if you feel like the information you got from just what's contained in the PSE is the information you need and it's accurate and it's a good picture, stop there. Um, if you feel like you need a little bit more information, think about pulling in some additional objects that aren't part of the kit.
I think that what I'm hearing from what you have to say, Millie, too, is that there's flexibility with this and, good judgment call that we as educators can have to the evaluation process. We have just a few minutes left. And before we close, there is one question that I would like to put out there. This may not be a question that we can answer in its entirety today, but it may be on the minds of other people. The question is, in regards to the visual perception skills evaluation, how is this information gained different from what would be gained from traditional tests of perception, such as the DT, VP, etc.? Those things that maybe an OT and a psych might gather for data collection. Are there any thoughts, Millie, that you might have about this visual perception compared to those other traditional assessments?
I tell you what, that's such a good question because visual perception is something that's looked at in as this participant indicates by other disciplines. Diagnosticians look at it, occupational therapists, and they all have tools for doing that. Those tools are not specifically designed for learners with visual impairments. And often what happens in those tools is they start off with pretty difficult visual skills, the assumption being that vision's not an issue. And so the big difference with the perceptual skills evaluation would be that it starts off with very simple visual perceptual tasks. And you want to establish that the learner's performance, the student's performance is strong on those foundational early skills before proceeding to things with a high degree of difficulty, like finding a scene.
Okay. Well, we are out of time for today, and I loved the opportunity to be exposed to this tool. I now know what to expect. I appreciated being able to have you walk us through, Tristan, a sampling of the process and how to handle the materials, what to expect. Millie, thank you for walking us through that educational evaluation process down all the way scaffolded to the instruction piece. So we are really thankful to have been able to learn about this tool. And thank you, Leanne, for reminding everyone that currently this product is available and in stock.